All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's live interview in the Grow Your Midterm Rental Business group. Each week, I'm interviewing midterm rental hosts from across the country to talk about everything to do with midterm rentals, rental arbitrage, co-hosting, and just real estate in general. We already have some really great guests lined up for the next upcoming weeks, and we are especially blessed to have an awesome guest lined up for today. Today, we have Toni Andell. Many of you probably have talked with Toni or might know Toni. She is the founder of All That Housing, and she has over 35 years of experience in the corporate housing industry. She began her career at Oakwood Worldwide, and she actually contributed significantly to Oakwood's expansion in the US, Asia, and the UK. Toni later created and then led the insurance housing division, developing systems for major insurance providers. She has also recently founded All That Housing to ensure consistency and quality in the furnished home and private rental markets, and she's partnering with NTR operators all across the country.
Yep.
Toni, thanks so much for hopping on. Thank you for being on this call.
Oh, thank you, Christian. I'm super excited about being here today.
That's great. So, Toni, I'm super excited I really want to hear about your story and like kind of how you got started because you have more experience in this industry than anyone else that I know. Um, so I'm curious, like, how did you get started in the corporate housing industry and midterm rental business?
By accident, I did. I basically, a friend from college, straight out of college, was working for Oakwood down in Orange County. And I'm like, I need a job. So she's like, I love my company, join it. So I interviewed and, I literally started on the property management side as a leasing consultant. That's how my journey started. And Oakwood had, they did unfurnished property management and they also did furnished property management. And so I worked my way and begged my way into getting into their corporate side because I realized that that was the vision and that was the exciting part of the industry. So I worked at properties in California, Southern California, and again started as a leasing consultant, worked my way up into outside sales in the LA area. And that it was just a great opportunity. The Oakwood had originally started off as a swinging singles, all singles, furnished apartments. And from what I understand, there were some amazing stories there, but I won't go into that. But then the CEO realized that the owner, a brilliant man, Howard Ruby, if you haven't looked him up, you should read his story. It's fascinating. He just said, you know what, the future is corporations, because people just kept dropping by and saying, I'm relocated, I need somewhere to stay. So they went with his furnished apartments. And so I went and became outside sales and grew with the company. The first arbitrage, we called it master lease. We did back in the early 90s, probably 1990. And that was when we lost a building in Torrance, California. The owner said, you know what, we don't want furnished homes anymore. And we had like Nissan and Toyota. Those were all my accounts, and we had nowhere to put our clients. So he's like, you know what, let's just go rent other people's apartments. And voila, that is how the industry took off. And we realized that our clients didn't care whether it was our apartment building or somebody else's. As long as the quality was consistent, we could go anywhere. So it was really fascinating. That's how the basically expansion of the corporate housing industry began. At Oakwood, there was probably at one point over 100 salespeople across the country, possibly across the globe. I don't even know, probably 200-300 of us, selling. And then I was tapped on the shoulder because I was, really into, selling nationwide. Actually, my friend Elaine Karros, who many of you might know, she's now a consultant. She was right there partnering with me, and we started the relocation management, focusing on relocation management companies. These are the people that do Fortune 1000 relocations. It's not insurance housing. That's a whole different name for it. We tapped into that market. We were one of the first companies that ever approached relocation management companies. And so we realized that the world, our global clients like, HP back in the time, Accenture, Toyota, everybody, they didn't need just the US. They needed to be everywhere. They needed a solution all across the globe. So our president of our company tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you know what? We want you to come help us expand into Asia. And so I went with them. There were 6 of us, and we met with investors. We met with property management companies that had apartment complexes. We were doing service departments there. Those are 4 and 5-star level accommodations. We competed with some of the top hotels of the world. And then I interviewed probably over 200 global HR companies throughout Asia in 7 countries. Again, it was Apple, it was HP, you name the company. I interviewed them and I said, if we build it, will you follow us? If we give you Western style housing, because all they had at the time was local furnished homes. And again, the quality was completely different. And they followed. And I think at this point, Oakwood sold back in 2020, but they still have the buildings there. I think there's about 56 buildings throughout Asia. So it was great. I mean, it was great. And then of course, I went on to insurance housing.
Holy smokes.
Division.
Wow. So that's amazing. I mean, you said a lot of things there.
No, I said a lot. I stopped at insurance housing because I wanted to breathe and ask me questions.
Yeah. So I want to dive. No, that's great. So it sounds like Oakwood basically invented rental arbitrage before it was called rental arbitrage. It was called third-party leasing or master leasing back then. That's basically, you guys paved that, you guys created that before anyone else had even heard of that.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. We were sitting and we had a management meeting. And again, this is when we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We lost 1 building. This could happen, again. And we were all sitting around the board table and we were throwing out names of what we were going to call it, right? Because you couldn't call it Oakwood Apartments anymore. So Howard or somebody in the room, I don't remember who it was, said, let's do corporate housing. And of course, I'm very vocal. Anybody that knows me knows I just say it like it is. And I'm like, oh, I hate that name. Guess what? I lost out on that one. But it was fun. I have to tell you, Christian, it was exciting to be at the forefront of something that little did we know it would become a multi-billion-dollar industry at that time. I mean, none of us sat in that room had any idea how big it would truly become. Because think about this. We had to talk our clients who were used to going into our buildings into going into somebody else's building. And we were up against, in those days, against the Marriotts and the Westons, the Hyatts, Hiltons, etc. We weren't just taking people out of one apartment to the next. We had to convince our clients that they needed to get out of hotels. And it wasn't cost effective. And the fear in them of you can't have quality control because how do you control quality? It was fun. It was exciting. It was challenging. It was just a wonderful experience.
That's incredible. Now, I'm curious, when you guys were doing these third-party leasings, what did that kind of deal structure look like, or what did the operations look like? Would you go to these companies and they would tell you, hey, we need housing for 100 employees, and then you'd go and find the housing for them, or how exactly, what did the operations of that look like?
That's a great question. It was a mix. So a lot of them, if as you know, on the relocation side of people, the temporary business side, our clients didn't commit to 1-year leases, right? They were committing to 30, 60, 90, but they were telling us the type of volume that they would have. And so at that time, and the business model eventually changed, but at that time we would listen and we'd analyze where it made sense. And so if somebody said they had 100 moves, we would go again, negotiate with some of the big multifamilies, and just, negotiate with them and try and get lease terms. And we had risk. We had to take down 1-year leases in a lot of markets, huge risk, right? So a lot of drilling and a lot of beating up on our sales team going, if we build it and we take those apartments, 100 in Houston, are you going to be able to backfill it? Are you going to be able to get us future business to, this, Accenture only needs it for, 90 days. What's going to happen those rest of those months? So we did. And we were very strategic on where we were going to place our clients. But I mean, I can tell you, I handled State Farm was one of my biggest accounts before I actually opened the insurance housing division. I did all of their cat teams.
Okay.
That was one of the wild experiences of my life.
Why is that?
I went with them on almost every major disaster. Remember, I live in California. So I started with them, disaster, one of the disaster capitals of the country. I mean, obviously there's more. Texas is right there too. But we had the fire, flood, and then earthquake all within a year and a half. And so we constantly had to do exactly what you just asked, grab inventory. For example, the 94 earthquake in Northridge. I got a call on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and he actually called my apartment because, cell phones weren't as popular, even though I had one. And the VP of State Farm called me and said, "Okay, Toni, are you ready?" And I said, "What, David?" And he goes, "We need 500 apartments."
Holy smokes.
I'm like, "What?" And it was throughout LA. Well, those 500 ended up being 1,500.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we scaled it. And we scaled it and we were able to get that. And my operations team was great. I do not take credit for finding the properties. They were amazing. And some of them stayed for 10, 15 years. So yeah, we did it.
Wow. Wow. And so at Oakwood, were you like, what was your exact responsibility? Like, were you more on the like finding properties, or were you more finding the clients, or everything?
For the when I was doing the before I opened insurance housing division, my responsibility was strictly finding the clients. I got, and that's why I opened my business now, because I have the relationships. My responsibility was finding the corporate clients, building the corporations, building the relationships with the clients.
Gotcha.
And
So
then
you,
my ability was working with our sales team across the country and teaching them, how to go into big major accounts and penetrate it and show them how we could not just solve their problems in Chicago, but solve their problems globally. So mine was more sales focused, but I partnered with I learned so much through my operations, my accounting department, my legal department, because I was negotiating major contracts, multi-million dollar contracts. So, I didn't have my head in the sand. I was very actively talking about strategically how we were going to get all this business.
that's crazy. That sounds like such like an exciting like time. Like that's incredible.
You know what? I was so blessed. I mean, granted, I was at the home office. I was in LA, so I had a lot of exposure to all the senior executives, and so I was able to move up the corporate ladder really well because, I jumped in full force. And the CEO was just like, "Gosh, Toni, you keep coming up with new things and new things that we need to do." So, I was lucky I was listened to. Back in the day when it was mostly all male executives, they were so open-minded. They didn't care. I mean, they just let us all come in and tell them what we needed, and they listened. We said, we need portals. We need to be in this location. It was a very innovative company, and I was lucky to be part of something that the CEO was like, "Tell me what you think we need and we'll build it." Sometimes he built things that we didn't need, but we built it.
That's great. So, okay, so then eventually you transitioned from corporate housing more to the insurance, and you helped build the insurance housing division.
Yeah.
Can you dive into that a little bit? How, like,
Absolutely. So
what did
my,
that?
yeah, so I, just so you know, my dream come true was when I got to do the international. It was such an amazing experience. The people that I met, I mean, at one point I met Tony Blair, the prime minister in London. I mean, right? You know, who does that? Um, so international was the passion of my life, and it will always have been one of the most exciting things I did in my life. However, I fell in love, got married, and had children, and I love my children. And so I had to pick them over my career in the sense of traveling abroad, because those would be 3 week at a time, and there was no FaceTime to say hello to them. So I had to reinvent myself, because all the positions that I had before were already fulfilled in the US. So I was like, you know what? We've been helping State Farm, Allstate, Nationwide, blah, blah, all these years with their cat teams. We're missing out on a huge piece of the pie. They're policyholders. So I investigated, I talked to people. Actually, people at Oakwood had come from CRS, interviewed them, and said, help me build what carriers need housing, because I realized apartments was not the solution. I'm like, you
Right.
know. So, anyways, I wrote a business plan. I proposed it. I pitched it to Oakwood executives, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we really don't want to do homes. We're scared of it." I'm like, "I promise you, I know how to do it." They put their faith in me, and so I built the insurance housing division. We already had a hotel division, so I worked with our hotel division, because that's a huge part of insurance housing. The first thing you do is you got to put them in hotels. I built our database of property management companies,
Mhm.
homeowners, taught my team how to pull on the strings of homeowners, because, again, there was no Airbnb back then. And if there
Mhm.
was, it was Verbo, which was VRBO back then.
Mhm.
They actually, it was Vacations by whatever it was called.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the name anymore, but we didn't even use them. So we literally had to go to landlords and say, I've got a displaced family, and really just negotiate the whole thing, set up the furniture, do everything the insurance housing companies are now doing. Um, that's what I did. I built it, and I led a team, and I worked with every operations office across the country. There were 50 offices across the country, and I said, this is how we're going to do it. And they thought I was crazy, but we did it. We onboarded it. We won, you name the contracts of the major carriers, we won them. We did it. It was great. I mean, it was another fascinating part of my life. I love to start businesses. I love to start divisions. So
Wow. That's really cool. So, like with basically, it sounds like you were doing like what ALE Solutions and CRS, like what they're all doing now. But
yeah,
basically, you did it first.
no, they actually, and I'm not, I would love to take credit that I did it first, but
Okay.
CRS was first, and I can tell you,
Okay.
CRS was first. ALE was second, and I'll tell you why ALE was second. Because
Okay.
CRS, want me to tell you the story behind that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So here's a little trivia. Some people don't know. So CRS had decided to move from San Diego to Arizona, and they decided that all their salespeople, everybody needed to move to Arizona. And so Rowena Zimmerman, who was the owner of ALA at the time, she worked for CRS, and she's like, "I'm not moving." And they're like, "No, you have to, or you have to quit, or something like that."
Sure.
And so Rose said no. So she went down to her basement of her house in Chicago, in St. Charles, and said, "You know what? I've got all the relationships." Called them all, and that's how she built the biggest insurance housing company out there.
Holy.
For us at ALE, and then THD followed, temporary accommodations. I can tell you Teresa's story at THD, because I worked there for 6 years, and so yeah. So I will, but I was one of yes, I was one of the companies that was in line. There weren't as many as there are now, but yes, I was one of them with Oakwood.
Gotcha. Wow. That's really cool.
And,
Um,
and we all became friends. Just so you know, we all became friends because we went to the same conferences together, and so
right.
we'd hang out and we'd talk. And so it's beautiful that I still have the friendships after all these years with these companies.
That's great. So you built that division for Oakwood, right?
Hmm.
So when did you transition out of Oakwood?
September 2009. I'll always remember that. Unfortunately, as you know, the economy dropped out and relocations, people stopped relocating. And so the company had to make some hard decisions. And I was one of the people of most of the executive level people were, a big chunk of us were laid off.
Mhm.
They must have laid off probably 200 people in that one thing. And they thought that they could have an insurance housing division through the corporate housing side of it. And then they realized, you know,
It's two
6 months
different
later,
divisions.
you had to have a spot, you had to have somebody that understood it. But I got laid off, and then I went with THD because my friend from Oakwood, he was at THD, and he said, come over to us, we want you. We're not, they weren't foolish, they understood what I knew. And so I went and joined them.
Okay. And what was that experience like at THD?
Shocking. I went from a 3,000 employee company to maybe 4,000 at the time to there was 30 of us.
Wow. Gotcha.
We all worked virtually, right?
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
I had been working virtually with Oakwood. I was one of the first ones to work virtually because I had moved out of LA and moved north like 65 miles. So I went back and forth 2 days a week. But when I started with THD, the entire company has always been virtual. And so it was shocking to me. And, they didn't have the kind of systems in place that, we had at Oakwood. Of course they do now. I mean, they built it. But yeah, I mean, it was great. It was a great company. Teresa Vidger, who owns the company, just a lovely woman.
Mhm.
And they sold it to Alacrity. But just, and she's still there.
What was
The
the recent story that you
Yeah,
mentioned?
the executive vice president. He's, like I said, I the going joke is I made him very wealthy when Katrina happened because he was Texas, and he was, again, we did the same thing we did in LA with Katrina. So no, he's just a good friend of mine, and we kept friendships forever. And it was a very nice group of individuals, still a great group of individuals.
Very cool. So then, is it after you transitioned out of THD? Is that when you started your current company, All That
No,
Housing?
I floated around a little bit, tried to find myself. My husband had bugged me back after I left Oakwood to actually start my own company, but he was still ramping up his business. He's an attorney, which is funny if you want to hear. He's an attorney. He specializes in real estate law. He represents landlords. He's a landlord, tenant, attorney. So his business was still growing, and I was a chicken. I should have started my company. I should have done an insurance housing division back then. I would be retired now, but
Sure.
somebody would have bought.
Sure.
But I kind of floundered a little bit, went to a couple different companies. My passion, my heart wasn't there. um, and then in 2020, again, the market crashed. The whole world shut down. And
Mhm.
I decided, you know what, enough is enough already. So I consulted a lot of temporary housing companies. Everybody wanted, my knowledge and wanted to know how to open insurance housing companies, how to do corporate housing, what platforms, people that all these platforms out there, how to improve customer friendly platforms. So I did a lot of consulting for different companies. I actually did one for a gentleman that owns 100 plus or manages 100 plus houses. And you know what? I went to a conference with all of my friends a couple of years ago, and they said, "Stop consulting for people. You know too much, and do your own thing." Because I had put together a business plan of working with furnished home providers and then setting up my own homes. And so everybody said, "Stop it. Go do your own thing. We will follow." And I did about 2 years ago. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna, stop giving other people my information, and I'm gonna go and build it." And it's been an amazing thing. I built a database of MTR providers. I have built relationships with unfurnished property management companies all across the country so that I can set up homes when I need to set them up.
Right.
Uh, and it's been an amazing experience. My friends in the community, in the industry, and I call them my friends, they're my clients now. They followed me. And, they gave me a very good pep talk, like, go, we saw your business plan. We love it. Go do it. Because,
Wow.
and I started it because of the lack of consistency. It's not great out there. It's
Sure.
bad, but it's not great. And so what happens is, these big relocation management companies that represent the Fortune 1000, they literally were on stage. As I was telling a friend out in the hallway of a conference that I was going to start my own business, and they all said, we won't go through Airbnb. We won't book through we need to be vetted. They need to know what's going on. And my friend, who's one of the big RMCs, she goes, oh gosh, if you don't know Toni Andell, go meet her. She's like, she does that kind of stuff. So it was like the stars aligned, and I said, okay, that's it. So the consistency is a problem. And so that's my company. I'm tough. I'm not going to lie, Christian.
Yeah.
You know it, but you
I,
yes.
I know it. Yeah. Cause I mean, you're renting 2 of my apartments now, all that
And it's
house
been,
for 2 of your clients. And it's
yep,
been great, but I know it. You're tough, man. You're tough.
but, but fair, right? You know
Yeah,
what?
fair. But it's, yeah.
You know why, and thank you. You've done an amazing job. I only hope that all the operators that I work with can be like you. You have been extremely you answered all of my questions. When there was a little small thing that happened, you jumped all over it. And that's what the industry needs, because we spoiled it. We spoiled, the past 40 years, 50 years, we've spoiled our clients, and they expect 24/7 service. And you gave it to me. Thank you. And they expect good quality in the apartments. They don't want the 150 thread count. They don't want IKEA sheets. They don't want grandma's flowered couch or chair. So we have standards. And I don't take every MTR operator. I don't. I can't risk my reputation. And yeah, so that's my thing is I either work with MTR operators, or in some instances I have set up my own homes. But I'm a little bit of a chicken sometimes. I don't carry inventory that isn't matching lease terms.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're not signing multi-year lease agreements or a 1-year lease agreement. If you
My
have
wife,
a 90-day need, you're signing a 90-day lease agreement.
yep, and that's for when I do unfurnished and I furnish them myself.
Gotcha.
I'll do 30-day stays with any MTR operator across the country, any day, anytime. But for me to furnish it, let's pretend, I've got houses in Kentucky, Kansas. I just put a gorgeous one in Bellevue for a CMO, for a chief marketing officer. I'm about to do a gorgeous one in Cincinnati for a CEO. I'll set those up, because they're 1-year leases. I'll set them up. It's the same family for a whole year. And, why not? But my ultimate goal is not to do that at all. My ultimate goal is to meet people like you, that I trust, and I know that we can have a partnership with, and say, Christian, you know what? You want to go set up a house for me, and we'll partner together on it. And that's, I did that in Bellevue. I worked with a local MTR operator, and she knew some of the investors that I didn't know. She made the calls, and I said, instead of renting furniture from court, and you already have the furniture you purchased, I'll rent it from you. So I basically managed the lease. I managed the lease with the landlord, the communications, all of that. And she managed the furniture. She decorated it. Again, I don't get credit for decorating it. We chatted about what I needed. But
Sure.
so that's my ultimate goal, is to work with, in every market, to have that 1 or 2 favorite person. Sorry, everybody. And, say, I trust you so much. Let's do it together.
That's awesome. That's amazing. How many, if you don't mind me asking, how many like active leases do you have going on right now with all
with my own properties? I have 10, because again, that's not my goal. You don't get 1-year leases that often. You got 10, but remember, I started this back in September of doing my own. I didn't just say I was going to do that. So 10 right now. And then of course I've got the MTR people that I'm partnering with, like you, that are the 30-day, 60-day, 90, etc.
Amazing. Amazing.
I'm
All right,
getting
guys.
I'm getting leads every day. I'm getting 30, 40 leads a day.
That's
And my head's spinning.
I believe it. So I mean, it sounds like you probably have more leads coming in than you have inventory.
Yes, I don't have enough MTR operators.
Yeah.
I lied. I mean, I have a lot, and I thought I had the most amazing database in the whole world. And then I said, oh, gosh, I need more. I need more.
Yeah.
Yesterday for Greer, South Carolina. I had a good one. I'm like, where's that?
Yeah, right.
I mean, but think about it, Christian. When I saw you at the MTR Summit, I literally said, Christian, I adore you, but I probably will never get a request for Buffalo. And that night I went home and it was in my inbox and I called you at the airport. You were at the airport. And
I was
so
at the airport when you called me. Yeah.
right. And I don't know where I'm going to find, I don't know where my next lead is going to come from.
Right. That's awesome.
Because my clients are diverse. That's why.
No, seriously. I mean, there's demand and there's needs for everywhere, all around the country. I mean,
right.
I hear it all the time. People are like, what, Buffalo? Like, what's going on in Buffalo? It's like, well, I mean, the demand is, you know what? There's people all around the country, like traveling for work or relocating. There's demand everywhere, all around.
It is everywhere. I'm like I said, I get some fascinating, and I got one for Estes Park, Colorado. Again, I had to Google. I was like, where is that? And I couldn't find any MTR operators because it was mostly vacation rental people in that area. So I literally called property management companies and said, I've got 15 people I need for 1-year leases. And then I was able to find a furniture rental company that could go up there. So I'm still working on, it's on hold, but again, that's my mind. My mind has to be as creative as it can be. But I'm lucky because I've built the network. People trust me and know that I'm going to find that I will do anything I can because I know how to negotiate with unfurnished property management companies. I also know how to work with MTR providers. They know I'll find it. And they're literally saying, you know what, Toni, we want you to vet everybody. We will pay you to make sure that these properties are up to our level of expectation. And so I work with insurance housing companies too. Again, obviously I'm friends with many of them. So they're sending me requests because they're trying to narrow down how many emails they have to send out to everybody. Right.
Of course.
So,
they can just come to you and you go and you take care of it. I mean, that's such a relief it helps everyone.
Yeah. So
sweet. So, okay, we've already gotten some questions here in the Facebook chat. Guys, go ahead and just start putting any questions that you have in the chat, and Toni and I will spend the next 10 to 15 minutes just going through all your questions and answering them to the best of our ability. While you guys put in all of your questions into the chat, I do want to let you know that if you want to learn more about growing or starting your midterm rental business, whether it's through owning property or with rental arbitrage or co-hosting, I do have a super affordable coaching program. It's currently only $149 a month. In this program, we do live Q&A calls every week, and you also get access to over 80 video modules. So my assistant is going to go ahead and just drop the link in the comments right now, so that you can learn more about the program. Just click the link if you want to learn more. And you can also schedule a free 15-minute call with me to see if the program is a good fit for you.
Great.
So we have some messages in the chat here. Dana says, hi, Toni. Dana Haas. She says, we spoke on the phone before, but it's actually so cool to meet you here. Thank you for sharing so much value.
Thanks, Dana. We're gonna get when you get that vacancy, we're gonna fill it up next time.
That's awesome.
I called Dana. I texted Dana and she was full, so I was so sad. Her property was.
No, Dana's great. Levy says, given what you know today, if someone is starting in the MTR world, what would you recommend the first 3 steps to be taken?
Oh, wow. So for me or for Christian, which one of us is going to answer that one?
You go first.
Okay, so the first 3 steps is, analyze your market. Don't just jump into a market blindly. Analyze it on, a couple of ways. For insurance, make sure you're picking neighborhoods that have high claims. You can Google this information. I've done it 100 times on there are, where you Google for insurance, number of claims, what's the largest cities with the most claims. Now remember, some of those claims can be small claims that only a few days, so you need to know the difference between a small claim and a larger claim. But you always want to do property, homeowners property. Don't Google auto claims. You want to go into a neighborhood that has at least 75% to 80% of ownership, not rentals, because rental claims only get 1 month of temporary housing. So you only want to go into the higher level home ownership. And that home ownership is also a big reason corporates that relocate, they want to go into those neighborhoods where there's more homeowners than there are rentals. So that kind of matches both demographics. I believe in only going into neighborhoods that are A plus, B neighborhoods. I think you get the exact same amount of return on your investment, if not more. And know what companies are going into your business, your market. Research it. You can go through your business journals. You can just Google what companies are coming in. There's the economic forecast, local economic forecast of every city. That is imperative that you know what businesses are there, what businesses are thinking about leaving, so that you can get an idea of that type of business. And then make sure you see how saturated your market is also. And find those neighborhoods that are still great neighborhoods and they're up and coming, and neighborhoods that people want to be in. But again, make sure you're not oversaturated in any particular market.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, market research, for me, it'd be market research. If you have to take 3 steps, first step I would say is you got to start to learn the business. So just like consume YouTube, watch like YouTube content, or I would say read books. There's not that many books out there about midterm rentals. There's some, but there's not many. So it's just I would say right now there's a lot of great YouTube content out there. I think Jesse Vasquez does a pretty good job. Bailey Kramer is good on YouTube. I actually just did a podcast interview with him yesterday on his channel, so I should be making an appearance on his channel soon. So yeah, it would be to educate yourself, do market research, and then just take action, and not to get stuck in the paralysis analysis where so many people get stuck.
Right, and you mentioned a great point, Christian. I really encourage people to look in and see what the industry that has been doing forever. Again, this industry is not new. We don't call it MTR in corporate housing. Actually, we would laugh at everybody for calling it an MTR. Sorry. It's getting, I'm trying to make sure they all understand the lingo, but us old school people, we don't call it MTR. It's been around forever. It's not new. So Google corporate housing, Google temporary housing, learn resources. I mean, there's so much out there to be learned. Tap into people like Christian, tap into people like Elaine Caros. The two of them, they're just amazing knowledge. And tap into, you can ask me, but I'm sorry, I'm so busy with so many leads. I'm inundated. I stopped consulting, but I'm happy to guide people on, if you've got homes already, guiding people on, hey, this is what the quality things that I need. So tap into the YouTube, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Jacqueline asks a good question here. She says, if you were new to MTR or had limited inventory or availability, How do you suggest navigating referrals to other MTR operators? Is there an industry standard referral fee, and would you use contracts? Do you do any referrals, Toni?
Well, my entire world is referrals.
Right.
Uh, I no, I'm sorry, my world's not referrals because I sign leases with all the MTR operators. I don't just pass on my clients. It's part of my contracts with all of my every single one of my clients. Again, because they trust me and that. So I don't pass on referrals. I negotiate my agreements with every single MTR person that I work with. Usually I'm more of a, hey, let's get a discount on this for me so that you're lower than what's on Zillow. So honestly, for this answer, I mean, I guess you can just, say, hey, I've got a property. I have a request in, San Diego, and I don't have a property. Anybody have one? That's a great way to build it. Um, but yeah, I have spent, I'm not going to lie to you, I have spent countless days and nights. I think my husband threatened divorce a couple times because I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was always on my phone through the MTR groups and Googling and all that. And I built myself a great network. So, yeah, I don't have the right answer for that one. Maybe you do, Christian.
No, yeah, because for what you're doing is rather you wouldn't refer, you would rent the property from that operator and then basically sublease it to the client.
Yeah, I'm telling you, every operator can come and, after this, message me. And yes, I'm open to everybody. Properties.
Yeah, so that's a great way to do that, Jacqueline, is if you can actually still take on the business. You just go out and find the property and sublease it. But I give referrals away all the time. I get leads that come in that I can't accommodate them. I get like, especially for like the travel nurses where there's not like that much of a budget, right? Where it's like there's not enough of a budget for me to go and sublease
No.
a furnished property. Like, what am I going to do? Like, sublease it and make $150 a month? Like, it's just doesn't work. So in those cases, I refer leads out to other landlords in my area, and I do it for free. But I just tell them whenever you have business, you bring it over to me, and I get referrals all the time just from that because I've given so many away.
Absolutely.
They come back, and I'm the first person that comes to those landlords' mind. And then I've even gotten referrals from tenants who didn't end up staying with me because I basically was like, a lead came my way. I referred them to a different landlord and was able to help them find housing, right? And then that tenant ended up referring me business, even though they never ended up staying with me.
I love that. It's the Macy Gimbel story. It's the what was it? Miracle on 50. Miracle on, oh gosh, Miracle on 34. I can't even think of the street. It was the Macy Gimbel. The Santa Claus was sitting there and they didn't have the toy, and he was at Macy's and he said, "Well, go over to Gimbel's. I know they have it." But Christian, I think that's why you're so well respected, because in the industry that, the corporate housing industry, that's all we do. We don't ask for referral fees. We just say, hey, here, call this person, and what comes around goes around. It does. I mean, if that's not your market niche, my niche is totally different, because my niche is, I've got the corporate clients and they won't let me refer to anybody and just pass it off. They're like, no way, Toni, you are not just, having me sign a lease with somebody. Because I make sure the quality and the controls are there. And I also make sure that if I've got 35 different houses across the country for this one client, let's pretend it's Amazon, they don't want to deal with 35 landlords. They want me to do it. That's why that's why my business is what it is. But it's not a business to just get into for corporates, especially because it's years of trust.
Right. You built up that experience and that network, right?
I won't refer to somebody that doesn't have the quality standards that I expect.
Right. Vivian Yip asks a great question. What's up, Vivian? She says, when you rent the home from the owner, who handles all the maintenance issues if there is a plumbing issue or HVAC?
Well, I make it happen. Me. So I'm going to use you as the great example. I call, I have a
Mhm.
conversation with you, and I say, who's handling this? Now, before I sign any lease with any landlord, whether it be unfurnished lease or a furnished, that's part of it's in my contract of who handles what issues on maintenance. I know it all up front. I don't wait for surprises.
Mhm.
So it just depends. I have my own gardeners in all of my homes that I set up. And then I have not all of them, but um, it's a negotiation. Some of my landlords took gardening and HVACs, and I said, just take it for me, put it in my fee, my rate. And then others are like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So both, Vivian.
Cool. Elaine says, if you're a landlord with one of the better homes in your market, Toni will bring a much higher group of clients to your property and a much different client. These companies are not looking on Airbnb and the other places you may be listed. So true.
It's
So true.
yes, my clients are probably the safest clients that anybody's going to get. because I don't, again, no risk. They've already been background checked. Their corporations are guaranteeing the money. I don't take anything that money's not guaranteed to me.
Right.
And in the 35 years of Elaine and I doing this, we probably can count, maybe on two hands damage that has happened. Plus, I have renter's insurance on every single one of my homes.
Right.
So it's like $300,000 worth of damage protection. So,
That's
we
awesome.
are my client, and I've never had to use it. My clients, knock on wood, my clients are they're it's
Yeah.
great.
Real deal. Yeah. Well, Toni, we're already past time a little bit here, so we're going to go ahead and have to end this call. Toni, thank you so much for hopping on today. It was such a pleasure to get to hear your story and all your experience in the corporate housing world. So just thanks so much for being willing to come on and share all this amazing information.
This was wonderful, Christian. Like I said, you are just an amazing human being, and I'm not saying this because it's your podcast, but you are a great person, and I really appreciate all that you do for the industry, and thank you for all your support for me and for my clients as well.
Thanks so much. I will talk with you soon, Toni, and see you all next week.
All right, see you next week. Okay, thanks so much. Bye bye.